They say gratitude begins at home, but that Thanksgiving. I learned that sometimes the people you've saved will make you feel like a stranger at your own family table. My name is Erica Wilson, I'm 35, and last year, I paid $500,000 to save my parents' house. And then 3 months later they texted me not to come to Thanksgiving. Even now, saying it out loud sounds unreal, like a bad dream I should have woken up from. But I didn't, because that text was real, and it cracked open every old wound I thought I'd buried. I guess I should start from the beginning. Growing up in suburban Illinois, I was the responsible daughter, the one who folded laundry before mom asked, who knew how to make dinner when dad worked late, and who stayed up doing homework by the glow of the hallway light long after everyone else had fallen asleep. My little sister, Melissa, was the opposite: soft, scattered, sensitive. She's fragile, Mom would say. She just needs a little more help. That phrase became the anthem of my childhood. Melissa needs more help. When Melissa scraped her knee, Mom rushed with band-aids and kisses. When I brought home straight A's, Dad gave me a distracted good job before turning back to the TV. If Melissa passed a single test, we celebrated with ice cream. When I won a statewide science competition at 15, they didn't even show up. Melissa had a cold. It didn't make me angry back then, just numb. I learned early that love wasn't about fairness, it was about fragility. Whoever broke first got the attention. So I became the unbreakable one. I worked my first part-time job at 16, paid for my own college applications, and eventually, my own tuition. Melissa. She dropped out of college 3 times, each time reinventing herself: yoga instructor, real estate assistant, spiritual influencer. Mom and Dad funded every restart, called her our little dreamer. Meanwhile, I worked 80-hour weeks at a tech startup, climbed my way into management, and tried not to notice that every time I sent money home, the phone calls got shorter. Still, I visited monthly, fixing whatever needed fixing: leaky sink, broken fence, unpaid bill. Melissa lived with them on and off, depending on her latest breakup or sabbatical from stress, and somehow, she always managed to be the hero of every family story. Then, 2 years ago, everything changed. Dad had a mild heart attack, Mom lost her job, their mortgage fell behind. I still remember the sound of my mother's voice that day: thin, trembling, ashamed. "Sweetheart," she said, "we're going to lose the house." There wasn't even a question in my mind. I wired them the money the next morning: $500,000 from my savings and stock options. It wiped out everything I'd spent 15 years building. But it felt right. Family first, right. They cried on the phone, told me I'd saved their lives. Dad promised he'd find a way to repay me. Mom said she'd never forget what I'd done. But by spring, it was as if that night never happened. Melissa moved back home to help. Within weeks, she was reorganizing the entire house, donating heirlooms, repainting walls, labeling cabinets with sticky notes. Mom called her a blessing. Dad said, "You know your sister, she's just trying to help." I told myself it didn't matter. I'd done the right thing. Love wasn't a ledger, but deep down, I felt something shifting. The calls became shorter, invitations rarer whenever I called. They were busy watching movies with Melissa, running errands, getting ready for dinner. I was grateful, though, that Dad's health had improved. And when I finally bought my first house, a modest 3-bedroom with a garden, I thought Thanksgiving would be the perfect way to bring everyone together again. I could already picture it: the smell of turkey, my dad at the head of the table, Mom laughing in the kitchen, Melissa maybe even helping for once, a fresh start. When I called to invite them, Mom sounded thrilled. "Oh, honey, that's perfect," she said. "We'll bring the pies. Your father will be so proud to see your new place." For the first time in years, I felt that old childlike excitement, the feeling of being included. The next weekend, they came to visit. Mom brought a plant. Dad installed my new shower head. For a few hours, it almost felt normal. Melissa skipped the visit for brunch with friends. I didn't mind. That night, I stayed up setting the dining table 8 perfect place settings, gold napkin rings, autumn candles. I sent a photo to the family group chat with the caption, "Can't wait to host everyone." Melissa replied first. "Looks nice. Maybe a bit formal for our family, though." Then she added, "BTW, I found some cute Thanksgiving decorations for the house. It looks amazing now." And Mom replied, "Melissa has really made everything look so festive." I stared at the messages for a long time. Their house, not mine. Still, no one had said the words. So I waited. I gave them the benefit of the doubt. Days passed. No confirmation, no mention of time, menu, or plans. Finally, I called. Dad answered. "Distracted. Melissa's been planning something. We'll call you back." They didn't. By Tuesday, I decided to stop wondering. I drove over, unannounced, carrying a bottle of wine and a jar of homemade cranberry sauce. When Mom opened the door, the smell of cinnamon hit me first. The dining table was already set her fine china, the lace tablecloth, everything perfect. "Oh," she said, flustered. "We were just, testing the setup." Then Melissa appeared, wearing an apron dusted with flour. She smiled that too bright smile she uses when she's hiding something. "I was going to call you tomorrow," she said. "We're doing Thanksgiving here this year. It's just easier for Dad not to travel, you know, but you can still come. Maybe bring that cheesecake you made last year. Everyone loved it." Her words hit like a slap masked as a compliment. I forced a smile. "Of course, whatever works best for everyone." Driving home, I told myself it was fine. The important thing was that we'd be together, right? 2 nights later, I stayed up late baking the cheesecake. I even wrapped small gifts for my parents. At 2 a.m., I finally went to bed. That's when my phone buzzed. A text from my father's number. "Erica, we need to talk about tomorrow. We appreciate everything you've done, especially helping with the house. But Melissa has worked so hard to create a perfect Thanksgiving, and she feels your success makes her uncomfortable. Could you skip this year? You can come for Christmas instead. We love you, Mom and Dad." I read it 3 times before my brain processed the words. Skip Thanksgiving. Because my success makes my sister uncomfortable. My throat closed. I stared at the ceiling, the phone screen burning my hands. $500,000 and I couldn't even have a seat at the table. I typed a dozen replies, angry, pleading, sarcastic, but deleted them all. Then I wrote 2 words, "Okay," and I pressed send. Then I placed the phone face down, turned off the lamp, and lay in the dark, listening to the sound of my own heart breaking. I lay there for a long time, staring at the glow from my phone long after the screen went dark. The words repeated in my mind like a cruel lullaby. Skip this year. We love you, Mom and Dad. Love you. The phrase felt hollow now, like the sound of an empty church bell. I don't know how long I stayed awake. But when morning came, I didn't cry. I didn't text. I didn't call. I just made coffee, sat at my kitchen table, and stared at the cheesecake I'd made for people who didn't want me there. It sat untouched, glossy and perfect, like proof of a devotion I no longer believed in. For the first time in my life, I didn't drive to them. I spent Thanksgiving alone. It wasn't dramatic, no movie tears, no angry cleaning spree. I simply went still. I cooked for myself because hunger doesn't pause for heartbreak. I turned on old jazz records and lit a candle. The quiet was loud, but honest. That evening, when I scrolled through social media, I saw my family smiling in a photo Melissa had posted. The caption read, "Family means everything. So grateful for today." The image stopped my breath. Mom's smile, Dad's arm around Melissa, the golden light of their dining room, my parents, my table runner, my candles, the ones I'd bought last year for them. I zoomed in and saw it clearly, the same white ceramic turkey centerpiece I'd given Mom when I got my first promotion. There it was, sitting in the middle of their perfect family photo, like a reminder that no matter how much I gave, I'd never belong in the picture. That night, something inside me shifted. It wasn't anger yet, more like a slow, steady realization I'd been living my life as their safety net, not their daughter. I'd been the quiet insurance policy for every bad decision, every rescue they refused to give themselves. And they'd taught me to mistake that for love. 2 weeks passed before anyone reached out. Then came a text from Mom. "Hope you're feeling better, sweetie." Melissa felt so guilty. "Let's plan a visit soon." Guilty, I thought. Not remorseful, not sorry guilty. Like skipping me was just an awkward oversight at a family dinner, not a betrayal years in the making. I typed and deleted a dozen responses before settling on, "I'm fine. Hope you enjoyed the holiday." Then I turned off my phone. That night, I did something I hadn't done since college. I opened an old notebook. It was the one where I used to plan everything, my goals, my dreams, my escape routes. I flipped through page after page of lists: buy my own car, travel to Italy, start a company. I'd done most of it, except one. At the bottom of a page dated 2008, I'd written in slanted teenage handwriting, "Stop begging people to choose you." I stared at that line for a long time. It hit differently now. So I made a new rule for myself: I wouldn't beg anymore. Not for invitations, not for recognition, not even for love that should have been given freely. By Christmas, I was ready. When they called that week, sounding bright and rehearsed, I didn't mention Thanksgiving. I didn't bring up the money, the house, the betrayal. I simply said, "Sure, I'll see you then." But I had a plan. That Christmas, I arrived an hour early before the noise, before the smiles. The house looked the same: Melissa's decorations, matching stockings, everything curated for photos. Mom opened the door with her usual hug, warm and slightly performative. "You came early," she said. "I wanted to see the house," I replied. "It's changed a lot." She smiled proudly. "Melissa's been amazing. She's basically running things now." Of course she was. Dad joined us in the living room, his voice booming but cautious. He hugged me longer than usual, maybe guilt, maybe habit. "Still busy at work?" he asked. "Always." I said, "Actually, I wanted to talk about that. About everything." He frowned, wary. "Everything?" "Yeah," I smiled. "You should probably call Melissa in too." Mom hesitated, but went to get her. Moments later, my sister appeared: perfect hair, soft voice, confidence borrowed from everyone who'd ever protected her from consequences. "Hey," she said, a little too brightly. "You made it." I nodded. I did, and I brought something. From my bag, I pulled out a folder, one I'd prepared weeks ago. Bank documents, wire transfers, legal records, proof of the money I'd used to pay off the house. I placed it on the coffee table. "I'm transferring the deed into your names," I said calmly. "It's yours now officially." Mom blinked. "What do you mean it's already?" "It was under my name," I said. "You were living here because I allowed it. But now I'm giving it to you, free and clear." They stared at me, confused. "But honey," Mom said softly, "you don't have to." "I do," I interrupted gently, "because I need to be done." Melissa frowned. "Done with what?" "Being the family fixer, the backup plan, the reason you all feel comfortable hurting me." Dad's face darkened. "That's not fair, Erica." "It's the truth," I said, my voice calm but trembling with years of silence finally breaking. "I paid off this house thinking it would make us a family again, but it just made you comfortable enough to forget I existed." Mom reached for my hand. "Sweetheart, it wasn't like that." "Wasn't it?" I asked. "You told me not to come to Thanksgiving because I made Melissa uncomfortable. You took my money, my time, and still made me feel like an outsider. I kept waiting for an apology, or at least some honesty, but you never gave it." Melissa crossed her arms. "Defensive. You're overreacting. You've always been dramatic." Her words snapped something sharp inside me. "No, Melissa, I've always been quiet. That's why you never noticed when I started disappearing from your stories." She opened her mouth to argue, but I held up a hand. "Don't. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to give you exactly what you wanted: the house, the space, the control." I slid the folder closer to her. "Congratulations. You finally get to be the one who runs the show." The room fell silent. Even the ticking clock seemed to pause. Mom whispered, "What about you?" "I'm buying my own place," I said, "somewhere far enough to breathe." Dad exhaled slowly, his face pale. "So you're just walking away?" "Yes," I said quietly, "because staying means shrinking. and I'm done shrinking for people who love me only when it's convenient. I stood, picked up my coat, and walked toward the door. Mom called after me, voice breaking, "Erica, please don't do this now, it's Christmas." I turned back once. Exactly. It's supposed to be about love, so maybe it's time I start giving some of it to myself. And then I left. Outside, snow was falling slow, steady, soundless. I stood on the porch for a moment, watching the flakes land on the roof I'd once saved. Inside, I could hear their muffled voices rising, confusion blending with denial. But the air was clear out here, cold, clean, honest. For the first time in years. I didn't feel like the problem. I felt like the solution. I didn't drive away right away. I sat in my car, the engine idling, snow gathering quietly on the windshield like a blanket I didn't ask for. Through the front window, I could still see the faint glow of my parents' Christmas lights, blurred now by the frost. It was strange how something so familiar could suddenly look like someone else's home. For most of my life, I thought leaving meant abandonment, that walking away from my family would make me cruel, ungrateful, cold. But sitting there, breathing through the ache in my chest, I realized leaving can sometimes be the only way to survive. I watched as a shadow moved past the curtain, probably my mother pacing, torn between guilt and denial. I wondered if she'd ever understand that what broke me wasn't just that Thanksgiving text. It was every small moment before it, every time she'd looked at me and seen usefulness instead of love. I started the car, the headlights slicing through the snowfall, and drove away. The roads were empty, a quiet ribbon stretching into the dark. My phone buzzed twice, texts from Melissa. I didn't open them. I didn't need to. I already knew what they'd say. Something like, "You didn't have to make a scene," or "You always take things too personally." I wasn't angry anymore, I was done. When I got home, I walked into silence. The kind that's too sharp, too honest. I placed my keys on the counter, took off my coat, and looked around. My house had always felt a little too clean, too staged, like I was waiting for guests who never came. But that night, it finally felt like mine. I poured a glass of wine, sat on the floor by the Christmas tree I decorated alone, and let myself feel everything I'd refused to before: grief, relief, guilt, freedom. They came in waves, overlapping, until I couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. I thought about the little girl I used to be, the one who used to wait by the window for her parents to notice her, who used to shrink herself to fit into their comfort. I wanted to tell her she'd made it out, that she'd grown into a woman who could stand in her own home, uninvited but unashamed. In the weeks that followed, I started doing things differently. I stopped checking the family group chat. I muted Melissa's updates. I even changed my phone wallpaper from the last family photo we'd taken to a picture of the ocean, endless, unpredictable, alive. It wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming space in my own mind. Then, sometime in February, an envelope arrived. No return address. Just my name written in my father's handwriting, heavy and deliberate. My heart tightened as I opened it. Inside was a short note. "Erica, we shouldn't have sent that text. It was cowardly. Your mother and I thought we were protecting peace, but we only protected the problem. You did more for us than we ever deserved. We love you. We just didn't know how to show it right. Dad." There was also a check for $500,000. I stared at it for a long time. The numbers almost unreal. But the truth was, it wasn't about the money anymore. It never had been. I folded the check back into the envelope and wrote one sentence on the back: "Keep it. Use it to learn what love actually costs." Then I mailed it back. It's been a year since that Thanksgiving. We haven't spoken since. And yet, in some strange way, I've made peace with it. I still love them, not the way I used to, but in the quiet, detached way you love a painting that once hung in your childhood home. You remember its shape, its colors, but you no longer need it on your wall. This past November, I hosted Thanksgiving again. Just me. a few close friends. No pretense, no performance. I cooked everything myself, burnt the rolls, oversalted the potatoes, forgot the cranberry sauce, and still, it was perfect. We laughed until we cried, told stories until the candles melted down to wax puddles. When I looked around that night, at the messy plates and the warmth and the laughter that didn't need to be earned, I realized something simple: family isn't the people who share your blood. It's the people who share your table willingly. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was missing anyone. Sometimes, I still think about that text, how a few words shattered something I spent decades trying to build. But now, I see it differently. That text didn't destroy me, it freed me. Because sometimes the most painful rejection is really an invitation to finally love yourself the way they never could. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever had to walk away from people you loved to find peace, know that you're not alone. Please like, share, and subscribe. If this story resonated with you, and tell me in the comments, what was the moment that made you finally choose yourself?